welcome back to another episode of the LKT Sports Show. I'm Ben. How you doing, Alex?
I am good, man. What an exciting time it's been. Well, excited to dive into it today.
Oh, absolutely. It's been fun. Big draft happened. It was awesome, and lots of free agent signings. Some crazy ones. Some ones we expected. Some ones we didn't expect. Some really long terms with not so much AAV, but we'll get to that one. So just wanted to show everybody here before we get cooking here. So for as we're the official sports show of the Lock Token Sports. So we have a new NFT marketplace coming out soon. Next few days should be. It's going to be amazing. It's every single team will have their own independent NFT contract. For those that don't know, so when you go on you buy NFTs, it's all kind of all over the place, and it's like you're buying it in the open space, right? This is owned by a team, right? And you buy it from the team, which is pretty sweet. So for example, the Oshawa Generals, a partner of us, how you doing? You can buy an NFT of, say, Callum Ritchie, who just went to Colorado. Kind of wish he went to Toronto, but that's okay. You can buy an NFT of Callum Ritchie, and it's yours, right? We have our digital fan pass, which we've showed you before in past episodes. Get exclusive rewards. All of that stuff will be on the marketplace. You can check it out. Links in the bio. Go check. It's going to be awesome. People are looking forward to it, and so are we. All right, so let's get into the episode here. So what we're going to be covering today is we're going to be covering some of the free agent frenzy, if you will. It's been pretty crazy. It's been had some ups and downs and all around. Alex, what's your take on it so far?
So it was fast and furious on July 1st there. It's such an exciting time. Those 2 hours. I mean, it was the worst day possible for this Twitter rate limit to be introduced for all of us hockey fans, as we're continuously just refreshing the page trying to see the new signings come in. But we saw a lot of term given out, and then we also saw the opposite, where there was also a lot of 1 year deals. So there wasn't the same kind of concentration, I would say, of 3 to 4 year kind of just midterm deals. There was either guys going, no, let me sign a deal, let me prove something this year and try and hit a payday next year, or like you alluded to on a couple of them, let me just lock in some safe earnings and why don't I get comfy here for a while and just see what we can do. So, I think there's a lot of good signings, a couple questionable ones, but there wasn't the same amount. There's that infamous day, I think it was about 6 years ago, where we saw about 7 contracts signed all in the $50 million total range, and all of them ended up being awful contracts as they worked out, just not great value. So I think GMs are getting a little smarter. And I think the players are getting a little smarter as well, right? Everyone's kind of trying to play the markets and trying to play each other a bit. And yeah, it'll be good to see who your winners are.
Yeah, and it's an interesting kind of market, I guess, would be the real best word right now, because there's all this speculation, I guess you can call it realistically, of what the cap is going to be in the next couple of years, right? In the next 2 years even, right? So maybe that's why we've seen a lot of 1 year deals. That could be a very large part of it. I mean, it makes complete amount of sense. But then again, in today's game, that's kind of what it is. Like every team is going to have, 6, 7, 8 plus guys that are UFAs or RFAs at the end, on their team by the end of the year. It's kind of the way that the league works now. It's, the salary cap era, right? So if they're saying it's $9 million in the next 3 years or something, or whatever they're saying, if that's the projections, maybe that's the thought of a lot of these guys when they're signing, and the teams, right? It's like, hey, you know what? We can give you this now, but, in a couple of years, when the cap's up by 9-10 million, cha-ching, here you go, just play for a little bit less right now. So anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to break down our 5 winners. We're nice people on the show, so we're not really going to cover losers because we don't like to do that. Come on, what do you know? So we're going to cover our 5 winners and our player winner, right? So who took the best all around contract, money wise, term wise, team wise, that whole kind of deal. So we're going to start with our number 1 winner for me, honestly, and again, non-biased show. But you know what? You have to agree with it. The Leafs absolutely dominated right now. I love every single pickup they made. They got Reeves at 3 years, 1.3. They got Klingberg at 1 year, which I'm not too fine about, but whatever. That comes into my argument of, hey, take less money in 4.125, I believe it was. Now and then, hey, next year if we can do it, let's talk about another 6.5, maybe 7, depending on. And then Bertuzzi at 5.5 for 1 year, which is kind of the same argument. And then Domi at 1 year at $3 million, which is also, you got to know, the same argument for sure, right? I love those signings for Toronto because they get everything they needed. And if you go back to past episodes, it's things that I've been ranting about with Toronto. They get Reeves, who you can look at maybe the fact that it's a bit of an overpayment at 1.3, but you know what? Reeves is still a $1 million player. I would say so. And they're probably like, okay, hey Ryan, here's $300,000. Get these guys fired up every single game, right? Because you know he's that guy, right? He's that locker room juice guy. You know he gets it going, right? You know he gets the blood pumping, and then he's gonna go out there and take someone's head off. Klingberg is exactly what they need to. That's a puck moving defenseman, right? If you look at their lines now, they have a puck moving defenseman on every single line, and that was kind of the problem a little bit in the second round of the playoffs. A couple other things, but that was a big factor for me at least. And then you get Bertuzzi, which honestly doesn't need to be much said about that. I don't care what they do with Bertuzzi as long as he's playing with Matthews. I do not care. I think they're going to be an excellent, excellent pairing. And then you get Domi. That one to me was I'm like, okay, I like the 3 million. I like that it's only 1 year. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then it's like everyone looks, oh well, him and Marner were buddies in London, right? Cool, sure. He brings some aggression and some scoring touch, which is fine with me. And maybe if he wants to try and live up to Ty and just be an absolute menace out there, then hey, fine with me too. So they get some good puck moving defensemen, and then a lot of grit, which they need, and then also still skill up front. Alex, what do you think of the? Well, I want to get your opinion on the Leafs first, and then we'll move to your number one, unless they are your number one.
Yeah, they made the list. I got them in like the 3-4 range. So I did really like what they did. The Reeves, I don't understand why it's 1.3 to me. Yeah, he is that cheaper player, and
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I need to understand better what the team can actually cover throughout the year. But like, yeah, I'd give him, give or take, one of their black credit cards and say, pump the boys up with whatever you need. You're not spending it out of your pocket to do this. But listen, it's an $800,000 contract.
Yeah,
because I think the contract with the Leafs is the term, the presence he's going to have through NHL media because of this role is it's truly amazing for him, and it's gonna be fun. I quite enjoyed him as sort of a personality as a player in the league. I hope I don't see him on the ice for more than 10 minutes a night, I'll say. But
yeah, so
I think if he gives you 8 minutes of hard hockey, 4 big body checks, and a couple mean stares, and maybe a fisticuffs here or there, I think he's gonna do his role well. And it feels weird because they gave the 36-year-old the 3-year term.
Yeah.
Now
but he's gonna fire them up, right? He's gonna be the locker room guy. Right, that's because like look at Tavares how you want. People say, oh, he doesn't get the boys pumped up. At the end of the day, we don't necessarily know that. He does lead by example. He's a bit of a professional, but like they need someone to get get the juice going, get them pumping, right? And Reeves is that guy.
Yeah, and I think that presence will really help throughout the year. Like it won't maybe feel as mundane, the hockey games. Like maybe it was because Boston was so far away. It was such a locked in Tampa, Toronto 2-3 all year. But like, man, it was really disappointing to me that last year, like it did feel relatively boring throughout the year being a Leafs fan. Like we were just on this slow trudge to, the playoffs and to play Tampa. And I don't, I'm not going to go full soccer fan and go that the regular season matters more, but we watch 82 games of that and we're guaranteed that every year as a fan of a team. You should probably try and get some enjoyment. That should really, it's kind of the main event, right? And then this playoff kind of seemingly crapshoot with how it plays out every year.
Yeah.
But, and then the playoffs come and you get to see what you got there. But yeah, anyway, so I liked a lot of what the Leafs did. I like that they also allowed themselves flexibility into next offseason, right? Like with the Bertuzzi deal. He wasn't coming here for more of the term, right? If he got the term, he was getting it somewhere. It sounds like he was trying to get it somewhere else with maybe a bit bigger money. He didn't quite get it. So he goes with let me play in prime time on a healthy contract. And, I think it's a great spot for the Leafs because you've got 3 guys that have all the motivation in the world to set themselves up for the biggest payday of their lives, playing in the biggest market. And, with Domi, it sounded like he came out firing right away that he really hopes that, he'll be able to sign an extension here too. Man, it's going to be easy for him to be a fan favorite as long as he, tries on the ice, and we're
Yeah.
probably all going to love him, right?
He's
At 3
related to
million,
Ty, man. He'll be fine. He's related to Ty.
and at 3 million this year, there's no real risk there. I mean,
Yeah.
with all the players that walked out the door for the Leafs,
Mhm.
I'm pretty happy with what they did, man.
He's like the new Kerfoot, I guess, but maybe $500,000 cheaper or whatever. So I'm fine with it. I'm cool with it. So Alex, who's your number one then?
So my number one might be the Detroit Red Wings. But I
Ooh.
say that with this air of the Justin Hall contract has me baffled.
Yeah, that was
I do
crazy, dude.
not understand how one of the guys that I feel like I respect most is one of the GMs in the league, and Stevie Yzerman, and a lot of people do. He seems to be a pretty smart guy. He's made a lot of pretty calculated moves that
For
look
sure.
like they're playing out well. His draft record's good.
Oh yeah.
I do not know how that front office watched this man play hockey for however long they did and evaluated that he almost needed to make double what he did last year. And so, I mean, he might be a little bit of one of the winners of free agency right there, that he gets 3.4. He's serviceable. He is. I'm baffled by the Rays. I'm baffled by the Rays. Like, if he was there on a 1.2 3-year deal, I would have been like, yeah, you know what? I get it.
Yeah, that was a weird one. That was a weird one for sure.
Besides that, I like a lot of the little things they did. If you want to pull up their sheet here, right? They've been in the rumor mill of this DeBrincat trade for a while, but it sounds like Ottawa, they want some decent money for him, right? They want not money. They want some decent assets.
Huge list. That is a lot of players.
And so what I see on this list, again, it's a lot of 1-year deals, and then there's a little bit of term. Comp for maybe a tiny bit more money and a tiny bit more term than you want. But hey, that's what free agency is. It's not the time where you get the most shrewd deal on July 1st, at least, right? You might find some shrewd deals nowadays, and as we get into mid-July. But anyways, I love Sprong. That's a great prove-it deal. Detroit, for me, has kind of set themselves up in this position. If the goaltending can kind of hold it together, because, I mean, we see Reimer sign there. You're bringing Reimer in. I love him, but he doesn't scream, let's go to the playoffs at this stage of his career.
Yeah, that's true.
Gostisbehere had a great quality year last year, man. Fisher, he only got 1.25, I think, or 1.25. He's been pretty good with Arizona. I was shocked that he didn't get more, but he also signed a prove-it deal. And I really think with all the talent this team's had, like, man, they just released an outright bought out or mutual termination with Philip Zadina, the former 6th overall pick.
Yeah.
And, I think it made sense to do that, right? They're going to fill his lineup spot, but maybe it's Costin that jumps in there at a pretty decent deal, pretty big body, right? They shored up their center depth with Comfer, Fisher on the wing. Like, they've got a lot of rookie and prospect talent coming up. And I think they did well of adding, good quality players, and I'm really excited to watch them this year, man. I think the Atlantic's going to be a lot more entertaining this year.
And that's honestly, that's kind of my thing with, like, I looked at Detroit and I'm like, okay, like, what's going on here, right? Because to bring up the point of the prospects, I know these guys, like Gostisbehere and I mean Hole's on 2 years, but they're on short-term deals. But you got guys like Edvinson, you got guys like Wallander. You got guys like Vero even, right? Like Mick Isaac that kind of need to play in the NHL right now, right? Now you're getting pushed out by Justin Hall, who's fine, but is he Simon Edvinson or William Wallander? No. You get Gostisbehere. Sure, you can have him, but he's kind of the guy you want to play with those young guys, right? They still have Mata, they still have Sherratt, they still, like, obviously Sider he's not going anywhere, right? They have a lot of defensemen, like a lot, right? Like they brought back Lidstrom. Like Lidstrom's a good player too, right? Like, are you gonna scratch him every night? Like, they have so many NHL players right now. It's kind of like the Leafs last year, where you're scratching Timmins and you're playing Gustafsson every now and again, right? Like, are they going to do the same thing? Like, they're not, as much as they want them to be. We got to face the facts. They're not a surefire playoff team. They're not, right? Like, they're damn good, but again, the East and the Atlantic is so tight, right? Like, they're not a surefire shot, right? Like, so if you're not a surefire shot, why are you signing guys like you're a surefire shot, right? Even Shanahan said, or not Shanahan, sorry, other Detroit guy, Yzerman said, like, we're gonna see, right? Like they don't know if they're a playoff lock yet, right? Like so now is kind of the time where you say, hey, Mr. Edmondson, hey, Mr. Wallander, hey, Berggren, if you want to be a full-time guy, right? Like let's go, like. But now they're like, no, you know what? We're just gonna bring Sprong in, and we're gonna bring Confer in, which again are very good players. If you're that locked team, right? That's why I saw them like, what's going on, right? Like Zadina. Okay, Zadina is actually one of my guys. I love Zadina, right? I don't know why. I want the best for the guy. I want the best for all players, of course, but I love Zadina, right? Like I saw that he got contract was mutually terminated, whatever the hell. But like, okay, I'm happy that he's going to now sign somewhere better. It's the same thing as Eli Tolvanen, right? I'm sure he's going to go somewhere and do quite well. But like, you have these young guys. Why are you not putting them in your lineup and replacing them with guys that aren't as good? No offense, right? Or just let these kids develop. So that was for me. I'm like, I can't even look at them on my list. Like it's like I don't know. I think they're kind of for that reason. Like they sign good players, but for the whole house of the team, they're kind of screwing themselves in my eyes, at least.
All right, one big counterpoint to that is I think there's only 2 of the contracts they signed that don't really have the possibility of being flipped this year. That if they're not that playoff caliber team, if they're not in the playoff picture hard by trade deadline, you could flip all but Comfort and Justin Hall from this page, right?
That's actually good point,
you're flipping Christian Fisher at a $1 million rate. Daniel Sprong, somebody needs some goal scoring, a power play guy. Boom, he's only $2 million. Somebody might need some goalie depth. Hey, James Reimer might be able to shore that up a little bit, right? Like a lot of those guys, maybe they don't have a ton of value, or they're not, the most valuable guys, right? If somehow Toronto wasn't a playoff team, Bertuzzi would have been a better, is a good cap flip.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
I think they still left themselves flexibility for during the season while bringing in quality guys that, they're not tied to long term for a lot of them. And that's where Justin Hall, it's wrong here on the NHL site. That's funny, but it is a 3-year deal at 3.4.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
it
where
is.
it's just like,
it's
like, dude, that's the guy that got
figure it
on
out.
this list. Holy crap!
Figure it out, NHL. That was okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, I do like their pickups, but I mean, for the grand scheme of it, you're right. You can totally flip them 100%. So I guess I didn't think about it. So we'll jump to my number 2 here. I got the Yotes, man. Call me a little bit crazy here for kind of praising the Yotes on what they've been doing, but they're looking pretty good. Like, oh my god, I can't spell. There we go, Coyote. There we are. How we doing? Okay, so I mean, I really like what they've done. Right? They know that, hey, we ain't making the playoffs. So you know what? Let's bring in a guy like Zucker on a 1 year, and that's the exact same thing. If he doesn't work, that's an easy second rounder, no problem. Second rounder prospect, even, right? The Bukestad contract was a little bit high. I think he got 2.1, but you know what? There's this. I'm going to say little, but he's a very large person named Connor Geeky, and he's a prospect for them, and it will do him wonders to watch him play. Right? Bukestad is one of the more underrated players in my eyes because he's a tank, first off. He's like 6'6", 230. Like, he's a monster. But, like, he is no slouch offensively. Now, obviously, his bread and butter is defense. He's a pure center. I guess he plays wing too, realistically. But, he's more of a pure center. But he's a great, great player. Like, he's an all-around guy. Geeky's going to be perfect to learn from him. That's, for me, that carries, the world. And then, they got Galchenyuk after, that crazy Nashville trade. So that was a little bit nuts. But, I do like Stetcher being there too, right? Because he can kind of maybe come in as that bottom pair, right? Because they do have a lot of young defensemen, right? A lot of young defensemen that Stetcher could also teach, right? He's not that old. I think he's still only like 29 or something like that. But, it's that style of player too. Right, he can kind of move in to that role and teach, Moser and Valimaki and who's I know they got Dursey. I keep forgetting the other prospect, but anyways, they can teach them how to go, right. And then I love the Kerfoot deal. I think that's I know it's Arizona, but and Kerfoot, he's been on a playoff team and everything and performed with the playoff team. But you know what? I think he's perfect for them because he's the kind of guy you can slot anywhere, right? And he's a pure two-way guy that these guys need to learn from. These prospects need to learn from. All the reason why I like these, I took Arizona so high is maybe not my number 2, but they're in my top 5 because their young kids are going to learn from all of their pickups, right? That's the big thing because Arizona has an amazing pool of prospects and they got to learn not just on their own. Guys like Zucker and Bukestad, they're perfect guys to learn from. So that's why I really think that they really cleaned up at the free agency and they got everyone on good deals. Kerfoot didn't even get a raise. I think he got 3.5 as well. So that's pretty good. So, I like him. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought that they had a good UFA period. What I would have liked to see a little bit more, so Bukestad 2-year deal. Again, you say it's a little bit high. It's fine. He seems serviceable. He's going to play.
Good, yeah.
He's going to play third line reliably, and if you need him to play second line, he's not going to look out of place. So that's totally fine there. What I kind of would have liked to see a bit more is using the cap space to accumulate organizational value in hockey assets. Yeah, what I sort of mean by that is Galchenyuk, at this stage, he doesn't look like he's going to A, do much for you, or B, do much in returning assets for you. Troy Stecher, the same thing. Like we saw him flip last year, and the return was underwhelming, right? Zucker, I think, is a great one. And maybe it's because I always envision playing GM with an unlimited budget, and obviously we know that that's not what's existed in Arizona.
Nope.
But right, I look at Zucker, that's a great use of $5 million this year. You needed to add some cap. He looks like he could, he's going to play probably first line for them.
For sure, I would assume so.
And get good showcase. And to me, I automatically just think of, okay, so that's a $2.65 million forward if you retain half, and that would maximize that asset value on the market, which would maximize the return you could possibly get from him. And then you go back into next offseason and you got $5 million to spend on the open market again. And now you buy another $5 million player, you flip them at the deadline, and wow, we just have brought in other teams' assets by housing their players until they can afford them. Right, because that's kind of what we saw last year with the Leafs, and it's everything's about the Leafs because we're huge fanboys and the hockey world revolves around them. But at the trade deadline, they were able to do so much because guys' cap hits didn't apply the same way as they would at the start of the year, right? They could fit so much more in because they're only taking that last chunk of the season actual cap hit on. And I would like to see teams like Arizona that I guess haven't been doing that and seem to be lacking behind the rest of the NHL in certain aspects of building a organization that's running the best it could be. And I'd like to just see them. I like what they did with Zucker, right? I think they could do it really well. Kerfoot, the second year, I think holds that back. And I think teams need to be a little less worried about, I can only sign them now and adding some term to make sure they stay with you. And no, go back with some confidence back to next year's free agency and spend that money again and bring somebody else in of quality.
Mm-hmm. So, but I feel like a guy like Kerfoot, though, they can keep around.
Yeah.
I think for sure.
They can. They just, to me, non-difference making guys, I think the NHL has had a long-standing history of being overly tied to them. And is that because of the way that the more grindy, the more middle six guy is celebrated when they are playing well? I'm not exactly sure. But I am seeing a lot more 1-year deals this year in general. And I think obviously because of the cap economics, but I think teams are also looking at term a little bit differently this year. And they're either making their swing and going 5 to 7 years, or they're, let's just do 1 or 2. We're really seeing the 3 to 4 year term kind of go away in a lot of circumstances.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So Alex, who's your number 2, I guess, in your top 5? Not necessarily number 2.
Well, a team right near Arizona, the Anaheim Ducks. Mm-hmm. I think they had a solid offseason. I wish they'd spent just maybe a little bit more. Because I think they could have spent a little bit more on guys that they could have flipped. Because I quite enjoy the Killorn signing. Maybe it feels like a bit too much money because I kind of look at it through the lens of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because would I give that guy that contract on my team? And it would be really hard to afford him at 6.25 on the Leafs. But the Tucks have a ton of cap space, so it's not a big deal. They got some big names to sign this offseason. And Troy Terry, pretty solid season last year. And hello, Trevor Zegras. That's probably going to be a double-digit number.
Yep.
But I think, a guy like Killorn, a guy like Gudis are going to be great plug-and-play players to help provide some veteran leadership, to help provide some solid, gritty minutes, to help provide some, safety a bit. Like looking at Gudis in that size, he's on the ice. People are taking note of that. And I think the deals themselves, they weren't unreasonable. Like that Killorn deal feels like it should have, a few years back, that's a 6-year deal still somehow.
Oh yeah.
And Gudis, same thing, right? And instead it's 3 years, $4 million, right? And in Killorn, 4 years, 6.25. To me, those are just two of for what the team needs, one of the sort of more shrewd and I guess best fits I think that I saw on free agency day. And I just wish they maybe spent a little bit more, but you need the players to want to come there and play as well and to want to take the deal. So
yeah, he was my I like the signings too. Killorn was actually my player winner for sure.
okay.
Because you know what, like that he's a great player. The guy's got cups. He's still I genuinely think I don't think 6.25 is an overpayment personally. For the 4 years, we'll see how he's playing in 4 years. But you know what? For what he does, the guy really does kind of everything, right? And I think that's a solid contract for a guy that does everything, a guy that's been there. And kind of the other thing too, can show the young guys how to do it, right? Like me personally, like that carries so much, right? Because I've already said it, but like the young kids can only do so much by learning on their own, right? They need to learn from these guys that have been through every experience, right? That's kind of why I like the Taylor Hall going to Bedard, going to Chicago so much, but like they need that, right? Guys like Fantelli, even Zegras, like Zegras hasn't been around that long. I mean, clearly he's still a great player, but like all their young guys, like we'll learn from a guy like Killorn, we'll learn from a guy like Gudas, like honestly, even a guy like Hag, right? Like you know what I mean? Like they'll learn from these guys. Obviously, they're going to help their team, of course, because I was still shocked that Anaheim finished as low as they did last year, personally, given that roster. But whatever, it happens, I guess. Everyone wants Bedard, but okay, fine. But still, like I like that for him, and I think that's a good deal for him. It's a good deal for the team, and that's that was my player winner for sure. And I like the other two signings. Again, Hag might not play, but I mean, if he does, he's a very reliable guy. A big bastard too. Love me them big bastards, and Gudis with his beard alone, that's worth $3 million or whatever it was. So yeah, there you go. So I like it. The Ducks are one of my hopeful teams, and I'm like I look at their prospect pool. I'm like, well, these guys are going to be scary in a few years, and they're already pretty good. So yeah, that's the big thing though. Like even Dostal, right? Lucas Dostal is a great goalie. He needs a contract too, right? Like that's going to be another one. But what's Terry going to get? Is he going to be – you could make the argument and say, hey, I'm kind of the same player as Timo Meier. Give me 8.8, 8 something for sure. And then Zegras, yeah, damn well could be a double-digit number. Would not be surprised. So we'll have to see about that. But my number 3 was they didn't make a whole lot of moves, but they, I think, made kind of the 2 biggest moves, plus a couple of re-signings. But I got the Carolina Hurricanes. So the Hurricanes have picked up Orlov and Bunting, which those were the notable ones. Coughlin I re-signed, I believe. So that's yeah. But I like both of those pickups, and then they signed Ranta and Anderson. Say what you want about Ranta and Anderson. Oh, they're a little bit injury prone. They kind of are, sure, but you still have a third
Peter Korchekov.
That guy, thank you very much. That's one of the ones. Like I love all the names. I'm always great with saying the names. That's the one. And and when I started in Emma Line, couldn't say it. But anyways, a little backstory about me. Can't say that guy's name to save my life, no matter how many times I hear it. But anyways, they have him, right? So you sign Anderson for 2 years. You sign Ranta for 1. Even better, right? Freddie, when he's playing, top-notch goalie. He's a very same with Ranta. Ranta is a starter on some teams, realistically, right? And to keep both of them and still have, I'm gonna go with Peter as their third string goalie, like that's come on, right? Bringing in Orlov, I don't even need to talk about it, right? Because Orlov is that kind of chameleon, if you will. He's that type of player where you can put him anywhere and he's going to do his job, right? I really, really like him there. He's a great player, and that's kind of what they need. Another Jacob Slavin type guy that can just bring reliable defense and offense, realistically, to that team, which they not desperately, but they need. Going on to the offense, bringing in Bunting, that I saw that and I'm like, okay, that's a little interesting. I can't remember, Alex, what was the cap? Do you have it in front of you?
4.5 million.
4.5 million. That's about the number I thought he would sign for. I didn't really think that he would sign with a great team with a lot of depth, especially on the wings. Right? Carolina has a lot of wing depth, man. They like so much. They're gonna have Pacioretty coming back. Oh no, Pacioretty left. My apologies. Never mind. But they still have Nikis. They still have Jarvis. You know, like Svechnikov. Like they're looking so good. Right? I don't know where. Like, can he slot in the top? Like Teravainen even still there. Like, is he gonna slot in the top 6? I don't think so. Right? And you know, for us Leaf fans, we've kind of learned that can Bunting run his own line? That's to be seen, right? That's the thing. So I saw this sign. I'm like, great on Carolina because, you know, you can put him on power play, whichever one you want, and, you know, mix him up, maybe try and fit him in the top 6. And Teravainen, you know, he can really run his own line. Same with Jarvis, you know, Nikis for sure. Holy jumping, that guy had a great year. But, like, can Bunting do that? I don't know, right? But all this, it sounds like I'm making it sound like they're one of my losers. No, if he can produce, he's going to be golden for that team, right? Because we all know Bunting, okay, maybe he's a little bit of a hothead sometimes, but you know what? Like, Carolina doesn't really have that, right? They need that, right? And it's a guy that can actually put up points too, right? So I really, really, really love that signing for them. If he can run his own line on the third pair or the third line, bingo, right? He's worth $6 million, right? That's awesome, but it all depends on if he can do it. So they're like my tentative winners, right? But bringing in Orlov, re-signing Freddie and Rantis to such great contracts, and even Coughlin, that's a win on its own. And I think that they're in my top 5 for sure. Alex, what do you think?
So I definitely liked what they did with the goaltending. I think having Kochetkov with the waiver exempt deal allowed, you know, the ability to have 2 guys that are more known as more injury prone, but that kind of three-way sort of tandem will work out with having that waiver exempt guy, right?
Yeah,
it kind of worked with the Leafs last year with Joseph Wall. It doesn't work the same this year because he's not waiver exempt. You put that guy on waivers, somebody's picking him up. So it does work for the build they have. They got good contracts with Anderson, 3.4 million. You got him to take a haircut. That helps. Orlov, so I like it from a bring good players into your organization standpoint. Now, I really agreed with what you said of he's kind of like defensemen that they already have, though. And to spend $8 million fresh dollars almost on that, that's where it's just, man, I really do like this team. Now, if things could be a little bit different and you maybe did make the big swing on a goalie, like they were a team to me that might have been the type that could be in the position to, you know, to pick up Connor Hellebuck and for it to really make sense to be pushing all in like that. Now, obviously, they're not going to do that kind of thing. I think you make great comments about how deep their winger depth is, but I mean, also those centers that run down the middle. I think what they've got, man, is 3 legit threat option lineups with scoring potential, right? Scoring potential throughout. And now where I'm just a little bit concerned, like the Orlov term, they got Aho to sign after this year. He's only got the 1 year left. They got Teravainen to sign after this year. And I think we're going to see, you know, maybe a Teravainen is a flip in the year to pick up something else that they need a bit more because they know they probably can't afford to give him a raise on his deal going into next season. So you look to get value other ways, or they're just trucking along and they don't want to mess with their chemistry. But I really like the Bunting deal. I think it's a good, solid ad. They didn't overpay him. Like I was worried that he might be the type that got into the 5.5 or the 6 range with term, and that definitely is, you know, having watched him pretty close the last couple of years, that definitely would have felt like a bit too much. And where 4.5, that seems pretty reasonable, especially free agency, right? You always feel like things might be just a little bit too long or a little bit too much money. And yeah, that kind of feels like what it is there. They didn't lose too much because, right, they did lose Pacioretty, but they never really had Pacioretty.
Yeah,
So
that's
they never really had him on the ice.
right.
So
Yeah.
organizationally, for how they play hockey, how they've shown up in the standings, that hit isn't felt so much. And I think their capologist will appreciate having a bit more of the flexibility and not having to be quite so close to the limit, even though they're trying to use up every dollar they can, it seems.
100%. Yeah. That is so true. They had Pacioretty. Poor guy. Like that sucks, man. Like I feel for Pacioretty so bad with those injuries. That's but I mean, hey, it's the sport. This is the greatest sport in the world. But you know what? Hey, all sports get hurt on the next level. But yeah, you're right. Like realistically, they do have great center depth, and Bunting could very well add, regardless of if he plays in the third line or third, whatever. So that could be fun. So Alex, who is your third?
I liked what Pittsburgh did quite a bit, and
I,
maybe
I
that's because I'm a Kyle Dubas fanboy. But I also just besides the Jari deal, I pretty much loved everything else they did. I think a guy like Lars Eller, 2.495 or something, just under 2.5 for a couple of years, great guy to have on that third line. I really, really like the Achari deal. Getting to see him, up close and personal on my team for a couple months. Man, that's a guy that I wish could have been kept around. And 3 years, $2 million. That's nothing on the books. No big deal there. And I'm not so I've seen a lot of comments about Graves both ways, and I definitely line up in the side. I think he's a solid player, man. He only got 4.5 million. It's under $5 million for 6 years, which it doesn't feel so bad to me, especially with what's being talked about in the market, that the cap will be going up by 5% or very close to it for the next couple of years, which will make a 10 to 15 million increase over the next 3 to 4. And you're still going to have this guy at just under 5 million, right? I think he helps sort of their age curve a bit, right? This is a team in win now mode, and they didn't have to pay win now money because they gave him a couple extra years. And I think by the time they get to those years that maybe you don't want him there anymore. Well, if Dubas is the type of GM that will find a way to make that move, and maybe president, whatever his title is, his hockey operation will find an effective way to make that move on and on to the next. Nedeljkovic was a little bit weird to me just because DeSmith was still under contract, so they're waiving one of the two of them on October 1st, whatever date that is. And maybe that just spells out for everybody what the plans are with DeSmith, because it would be really weird to bring Ned in and then waive him at the start of the season. Will Butcher, man, he had a great little stretch with New Jersey there. I think it was about 2 years ago. No risk. He was signed just under $1 million a year. Hey man, come let's see what you can do. We're trying to do everything we can to win a cup here in the final stretch of hockey for our big three players here. And if that's not going to get you fired up as a player to do everything you can, I mean, it seems like a great situation to be joining, and set yourself up to hopefully get back to a respectable couple year deal next offseason. So yeah, just a lot of solid value I felt this offseason for them. Not a lot of waste, and a lot of what they sort of need going into the season to try and make a final run of this. Maybe I would have liked a touch more scoring feeling coming from this. But you maybe also just need the guys on the roster to score a bit more as well. Like Mikael Granlund, that guy needs to have a better year this year. He 100%. Needs to be better. So
they were Pittsburgh for me. They were my number 6.
Oh.
I really wanted to put him in there because I like the players they picked up. It's not anybody flashy per se, right? I love the Graves deal. I'm in the same boat as you. I think Graves is another one of those underrated defensemen. He's not just a big bastard. He's a big mean bastard. And he's a big mean bastard that can actually produce decent points. That's exactly what they need. The Achari deal, golden. That's a golden deal right there. That's the type of guy who's going to gel so well with that line. Even honestly, if he plays, maybe he plays, fourth line. But Nieto is another great time. He's a good, very serviceable player. Like they're going to have, again, not the flashiest lineup, bottom 6 wise, but reliable, right? The only thing that kind of kept me away from it was that exact thing with Nedeljkovic and DeSmith, right? If I'm not mistaken, Nedeljkovic signed for 1.5, right? If they don't keep him, what are you doing? Right? DeSmith is still signed for one more year, and they just signed Yari to that great deal. What's going on here? Okay, like it for me, it's like the curious case of Nedeljkovic, right? It's like why, what happened, right? Was Carolina right this whole time? You know, like what happened, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. Like what happened in Detroit? It was just a mystery, right? Like, it was very, very odd. Can he be a very good backup? Absolutely. Can he be a good starter? He was. So maybe, right? But like it's not like they're, looking at him as, hey, you might come in and be the starter because we just signed our guy in Yari, right? Or so that I don't really know what's going on there, but that was kind of the reason why I took them out. Also, the other teams did such great signings, but like the depth is going to be incredible. The depth is going to be awesome on this team because yes, you're right. Pittsburgh and I guess Dubas, whatever. That's probably what they said in the interview. Listen, you got about 3 years to win, right? Because you're not trading any of our big three. You're not trading Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. It's not happening, right? So he made his splash, I guess, with picking up Riley Smith for that 3rd round pick. That's your adding more. Yeah, exactly. That's your adding more scoring depth, right? So now, this is just purely addressing the bottom 6. I think every single one of these guys on this list, forward-wise, is going to be in the bottom 6. Graves very well could be the top pair. Top 4 for sure. Even if he's on the 3rd pair. That's still crazy depth, right? I'm really, really liking these signings, and the only question is just the goaltending department. But, I mean, hey, Nedeljkovic could very well turn out to be a backup, and a very good one at that. So we'll have to see with that. And I don't know. It's going to be fun to see what they can do in the next 3 years because, I mean, realistically, I think when Malkin's contract is done in 3 seasons, he's probably going to call it quits. He'll be 40 by then. So, and I feel like he's not the type of guy to keep playing until he can't do it anymore. So I don't know. We'll have to find out. But Crosby, we'll see. But so we'll move on to my number 4. I got the Avs. I think they did. Oh man, they made such great signings. I really, really, really like their ones. But there's only one thing. There's some question, right? Miles Wood, 0 question. 6 years, 2.5, gorgeous. That is a fantastic deal. I think he's going to fit more than perfectly. He's going to end up being possibly the steal of the entire free agency. Love it. Big bastard. Great defensively. Can actually score. Got great playmaking. Perfect guy to have on that team. Now, Drouin at 800 or 850, was it?
Something like that, yeah.
Regardless, below $1 million, considering he was at 5 last year, or 5.5, even whatever. He's hey, you know what? Let's see what happens. And according to Daily Faceoff, he's slotted to play first line with the 2 big boys in McKinnon and Rantanen. So that would be quite interesting, right? They bring back Cogliano, they bring back Jack Johnson, they sign Bowen Byram, right? I really, really like. I'm hoping Bowen Byram can, really kind of jump into that player he's supposed to be, and even bring like some of the smaller guys. Riley Tufte is a great player too, right? Someone gets knocked out, injuries happen. He could very well fill that lineup, right? He's another big guy that can score, right? I really like that. So I think they had the smartest signings, even though one of them is a pretty big gamble, right? But I think if that's the one gamble that if it pays off to the top of tippity top. Right? I think that's going to be awesome. I really, really was blown away by their signings, but that's a smart Mr. Joe Sakic. So Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, man. For me, Miles Wood definitely was one of the maybe best signings of free agency with what he brings on the ice. It definitely adds that mean element. He's a pretty good skater, man. I think he could be a penalty killing option for them. But like the deal, just 2.5 million, like that's a set it and forget it. Like not going to cause you no harm. And I think Drouin, along with maybe Blake Wheeler, are maybe 2 of the lowest risk, highest upside plays that were 100%. Signed this offseason. And what GM wouldn't want to be signing the lowest risk, high upside plays, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To reunite Drouin, right? I think Daily Faceoff would have him on the first line just because you have to try it. There's no chance that they don't try it, right? And that guy playing back with McKinnon again, maybe finds the groove again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And oh wait, Rantanen's probably going to be on the other wing. Like that legitimately has the very real chance to be the scariest line in hockey.
oh yeah.
And it's with a reclamation project in theory on line one. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it going, yeah, I can totally see a world in which this works out really well. And if it doesn't, well, there's no risk. It's under $1 million, no big deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so love that. Only upside there. Good to get Byram signed for a couple of years. I would have liked to see that youngster get a couple more term, just because I think there's a solid player in there. But I quite like it for.
Like with there is still a risk with him, right? Like, he's had his injury issues, right? And it's upper body in the head area, right? So you got to be careful, right? Like for his sake too, of course, honestly, more than the team. Screw the team as long as the guy is healthy, right? So you got to be a little bit, from the business standpoint of the Colorado Avalanche, you got to be a little bit careful, right? When he plays, he's amazing, but you got to still be careful because you never know if those injuries are never going to go away, right? That's the big thing. So sorry to interrupt.
No worries, man. And yeah, I mean, for him, I think the signing for him personally, it's great. You get the 2 years, so you have that little bit of security, but you know what runway you've got ahead of you, and all this talk of the cap going up, right? If the cap actually does go up by about $10 million a team over the next 2 years, that's $300 million in the marketplace to be spent on players. And right, it can't be every single one of these guys that gets a bag, but it's probably going to be a bunch of them, and he's absolutely going to be in prime position, provided he gets himself there to really cash in.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, Cogliano, man, that's a great depth guy. He's been there. He's got familiarity, right? Johnson, they bring it. Man, guys that are going to do you no harm, and they didn't cost much. They only gave real term to Miles Wood, which I think at the term or the cost he accepted, right? 2.5. I think it made a lot of sense. So yeah, I quite like them.
The one thing that's still a bit of a question is, they still have Ross Colton to bring in, right? Like now, it could even go higher depending on what. Now, obviously, Ross Colton came from a trade, but it depends on what they sign him for. Will he get a very big contract? Probably not. You might get a nice little kind of bridge prove it deal, but I mean, regardless, like they could have got even better. But Alex, who's your for?
Well, so they were on my list, and just to add into the Ross Colton, they are actually over the cap right now, so it is going to be a little interesting to see what maneuvering they do. But with their forward core, everybody that really makes an impact is signed to at least 2 years. So, this group's going to have a little bit of time to build some chemistry together and to really, try and make another run at being Cup champions again. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think between the five teams that I had, we've gone over them all now. So do you have any teams left on your list that we haven't gone over?
Okay, sweet. So I do actually. I have the Nashville Predators.
Okay.
I loved what they did too. I think they made some excellent signings. Maybe a lot of people say the Shen payment was a bit much. I don't really agree. A little bit. What was it, 2.25?
275.
275? Okay.
Maybe 2.25 is where it should have been.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But you know what though, man? Like he's consistently killing guys. And you know what? Like he's not, for a big dude, he's not bad with the puck, man. Like he's really not, right? Like you can play him. I think the perfect pair would be him and Yossi. Yossi's a do with everything kind of guy, and in the case that Yossi wants to maybe hit 100 this year, because he was so close last time, like he could very well say, okay, you know what, go, I got this, don't worry, no problem. Anybody comes across this blue line, they're losing their head or their eyesight temporarily. So I love that signing. Bringing in Nyquist was a bit much on the contract. That was a bit pretty healthy. What was the contract, Alex?
Nyquist signed for 3.185, just under 3.2.
That's a little bit much, honestly. Will he fit that team? Yeah, I think for sure, right? And they are like the only thing that I'm looking at this team, I'm going based off the players, right? Like who they signed and kind of the whole thing of it too. But if they're going for this supposed rebuild, which is what people say, but then some people say they're not, and it's like all the guys they signed doesn't scream rebuild. That's for sure. So, but I mean, regardless of that, I love the signing, right? Because Nyquist will help, and they got O'Reilly on that beautiful deal, right? 4.5 was it for 4 years?
Yep.
That's a great deal, man. And they have a lot of good like wing prospects, that are going to learn from him and really help. So I like if they're not by these signings, it doesn't look like they're going for a rebuild or at least maybe a retool of sorts. So I think this is going to help a lot, right? And with O'Reilly, he's going to play in that first line more than likely, and him and Philip Forsberg will be a very lethal combo. I think a very lethal one for sure. So, and then this was the one that I really liked. I don't know what happened. It was like the minorly curious case of Cody Glass, but it's like he was up here and then he was kind of like not at the bottom but down here, and then he's starting to climb back up to the top again. He had a very good year last year, and I think he's still gonna make that jump to the top, maybe not of where people thought he was gonna be, but a top 6 without a question. And to bring him in on a great deal like that, no problem, right? So I'm thinking they're gonna be nice. And will they make the playoffs? Maybe not. Maybe they might just miss the playoffs. Who knows, right? But I mean, with these guys that they brought in, I like that. So I'm thinking it'll be good for them. So we'll jump to. I
Hey,
wanted to bring this up.
wait.
Oh,
No,
what do
no.
you got? What do you got? What do you
I
got?
got to get one word in on Nashville just to add in that I probably would have had them up there as well if I didn't feel just so uncomfortable at how they got their cap space and just how I feel uncomfortable at the asset manage. I didn't get it. You got nothing back for retaining half of Ryan Johansson. And then you didn't even
Well,
and
if
then
you
you
think about it, like
no,
they
they
got
got
O'Reilly with that money.
okay, but you could have still to me it feels ridiculous
Yeah,
that
it still is very ridiculous. Yes.
you traded to a team that we would both say are relative cup contenders,
Yeah.
who's going to have that player slot in on their second line, and you didn't get an asset back for relieving them of $4 million of his cap for making him an effective cap hit for the
True.
player again.
True.
You got nothing back for that besides the space. Fine, then you flip the space into O'Reilly. So all
It's
you
still
did,
weird.
all
Yeah,
you
yeah.
did is help a rival get their second line center at a cost that they can afford, and you replaced him. Okay, fine. We'll call that a neutral. What the heck happened to Duchesne? You couldn't do the same there
Yeah,
because
yeah, sure.
at least with the Johansson deal, they're saving more money on the cap and actual dollars than they're just paying to Duchesne to send him off on his merry way to do whatever he wants, which was go to Dallas for $3 million. How didn't you? It just that's where I'm not an NHL GM, so I don't have these behind the scenes conversations. But I do not understand how they didn't seem to pan into some kind of deal where you could have retained half on Duchesne again, and to me, you should have gotten a notable asset for that.
Yeah,
maybe
for sure.
maybe it's not the first round pick, maybe it's not a high prospect, but maybe it's a second round pick, maybe it's a future second. Bank those assets and then deploy the cap space again. I am a big fan of that, and I think they did relatively well. Luke Schenn is the classic free agent. Got a little bit too much money. Give me 2 years at 2.25. Love the deal. 3 years at 2.75 feels just a little bit much. That means it's probably a fine enough deal, right? Ryan O'Reilly, great value on that contract, and Cody Glass, 2 years, 2.5, and he's still an RFA at the end of it. Perfect. That's going to be some great value, which, hey, with all the dead money they've got on their books now, they need that great value.
Yeah,
and it's literally just for that reason that I like, if that money and if those assets would turned around better to me, they would have been in that prime position to either be picking up more players or flipping them into players at the deadline, whatever. But having that asset value in the organization to turn into more on ice product. I like their team, man. I'm seeing a lot of dead cap money that I would have liked to see have a bigger return to them for it.
Yeah. So on the note of Duchesne, I couldn't really pick one of my single player winners. I had 3, but it's just because I was so tight. But Duchesne's one of them, and for the sole reason of holy, he's gonna work really well in Dallas. I love him in Dallas, man. I think he's going to be awesome because he's not also a pure center, right? He can play realistic, more right wing, but he can play both wings, right? Will he be better at center? Absolutely, right? But I mean, put him on your third line center if you want, buddy. Come on, right? I think he's going to fit beautifully with that speed and scoring stacked team, right? But yeah, so Alex, who was your player winner?
Well, man, for me, I know I'm the hometown boy, but I think what Ryan Reeves did was set himself up for life with that contract he just signed.
Yeah.
Let alone it being give or take the most valuable actual dollars he signed, which at 36 years old, not many NHL players will ever say that they got their most lucrative deal at 36 years old. But just what that's
True.
going to do for man, he's going to have a broadcasting job or whatever the man
Oh
wants to
yeah,
do.
for sure.
Whatever he
Mhm.
wants to do in media after, or whatever he wants to do around the community. Right? He seems like a good dude.
Oh, he's
He
a
wants
gem,
to.
dude. He's a
If he wants
gem.
to run some kind of sports program in Toronto, that thing's going to be filled up, man. Like
Mhm.
whatever he wants to do, he'll make money off of it and do it for as long as he wants to do it after this. Which all the power to you. You literally you sign your retirement package and you get to play 3 more years before it kicks in. You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think he is one of the single biggest winners. I think Blake Wheeler didn't get the money at all, but
But he got a good spot. Yeah,
do I feel like the sentiment on him from 2 months ago to where it's going to be, mid next season, I think just has the possibility for, one of the highest upsides in the league in that sort of transition. I think the Rangers are still going to be a solid team.
for sure.
He's costing them nothing, so
Mhm.
they can fill around him as much as they possibly could have. And I think he's going to come out with a little bit of attitude next
Oh,
season.
for
Going,
sure. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I'm here. I'm still a good hockey player, and I still want to make another contract after this. So those are two of
Mhm.
the ones I really liked.
Yeah, no, that for sure. So I got to bring this up because it's kind of been the talk of the town right now. So we're going to talk about a little team known as the Boston Bruins because a lot of people are saying that they completely blew it. Personally, I don't really think so. Sure, they brought in about 900 years of age. A lot of old guys, right? But you know what? I am excited to see JVR in Boston. I think he'll be nice, and I'd be shocked if he wasn't top six. I think he probably will. He might not, but at 1 year, 1 million, I believe, that's a good contract for him. He's in the last probably 5 seasons now. He's been up here, down here, up here, down here, up here, in that order. So I don't know. Lucic, homecoming, buddy. Let's you want to try it again? I know you're not the same players back then, but you know what? You can do your job, and you know what? Maybe it might light a fire under his ass and say, hey, you know what? Hey, maybe I'll try and put 30 in again. Like probably not, but still, it's a homecoming, right? And Shattenkirk is needed. Shattenkirk may be a little bit seasoned now too, but you know what? He's needed still, right? I'd be blown away if they weren't the oldest team in the league by the beginning of the season, but still, right? Like I'm loving and Morgan Geeky, still a good player, good fast player too. You can put him 1 to 4, you put him wherever you want, right? I thought that they were good signings. Were they great signings? We'll see, right? Those 3 deals, Geeky, I'm thinking is going to be a reliable player. It's exactly what you're going to get, right? A good, realistic kind of middle 6 player, right? That's more than serviceable, right? You never know who he's going to click with. Bingo, bingo, right? But JVR, Lucic, and Shattenkirk will be kind of the, hey, you know what? Let's see what happens. But they're all on 1 years. It doesn't really matter too much, right? That's the thing. I think the reason why people are like, oh, this is stupid, blah, 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 Boston blew it, is because Boston's coming off the season they just had, right? And to make it a little bit worse or a little bit more impactful, the playoffs that they just had. They trade Hall and get 2 good younger players on defense, which they need, of course. They don't sign Bertuzzi with that money. Okay, things are getting a little bit weird here. What's going on? Yeah, we'll bring in JVR, Lucic, and Shattenkirk, though. Don't worry about it. So I think that's why people are like, well, what the hell just happened? Right? Well, these guys don't look as good, nearly as good. I love Pavel Zacha, but is he a number 1 center in the NHL? Not really. Could be, depending. But he's more of a second line center or a number 1 on a not a great team. I don't mind it. I'm like 60% good, 40% not good. Alex, what do you think?
So everything matters with context, right? With what the Bruins had available to do, did they have a good offseason? Maybe. I think I would put myself as a solid maybe. I do like the Morgan Geeky deal. Not a lot of dollars there, $2 million, and that was like their most expensive signing. Definitely the sentiment is just you see all these quality names, these impact players that are at this point out the door, right? Patrice Bergeron remains to be seen if he comes back. Maybe he doesn't come back at the start of the year, but maybe he does stay in shape and look to get in, near the trade deadline or something. And maybe this team is still good enough to make a solid run this year. But they were absolutely loaded up to win and make a solid push last year, and they set records for the regular season play, which was amazing. And they ran into the team of dreams in the East, which was Florida this year, and they couldn't get it done. And it, for them, it really feels like how we've probably felt as Leafs fans for a little bit of, this team was so good and they just lost to that team, really? And now this offseason was going to be underwhelming because they've got a lot of bonus overage for next year. They had guys that wanted term, right? They were trying to figure out some money to keep Bertuzzi, and then he walks to one of your biggest rivals. So for Boston fans, it's definitely got to be a bit of an uncomfortable feeling. But man, with what money they did have available, sure, if you could go and handpick the other best contracts that were signed for $1 million around the NHL, you could say they could have done better, right? You give me Blake Wheeler instead of JVR, I think I'd like that more, but you can't just make somebody to sign with you. If he wants to sign with the Rangers and they want him too, well, you don't get a choice in the matter. So again, with what they possibly had available to do, I think they did fine enough. I don't really love the JVR deal personally because I think he'll end up slotting more to their third line. And I just
that could happen.
Maybe it was the Philly effect last year that team was just really bad and it made everybody look a little bit worse. But I think this will be a good shot for him to kind of, give himself maybe one last sort of shot at having an impact here. And the team is just worse on paper than they were last year. And that's it. It was always going to be that way based on the cap, based on how they were spending the cap. They have a lot of bonus money this year that is just not going to get to be used. And the Taylor Hall deal, they got to get those defensemen signed and keep them, and then maybe flip somebody that's a bit more expensive into another asset that fits a bit better, and maybe the whole thing looks good. I'm really interested to see what happens with Swayman because they don't have money really for him. Do they bring up somebody else as a backup? Do you flip Allmark, right? Like, is this the time? But is this the time to be shrewd, to bet on the younger guy? And is that going to be $5 million in cap that is going to get better spent on depth through the lineup? And it should return you something of note, something pretty good. But right. But now teams have made their moves, right? Once free agency started, like Carolina's not looking for a goalie. They're not going to be looking to spend a ton to grab somebody after they just re-signed Anderson and Ranta and have Kochetkov, right? Like, I think it's just a bit of an uncomfortable year, and Bruins fans kind of just need to go into next season with an open mind. It's not the same team that just
whatever happens. Whatever happens. But on that note,
and we got Lucic back. Let's have a fun year. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah, Lucic is back, boy. Let's go. Their Twitter was going nuts. It was hilarious. But on that note, just because maybe that is kind of a bit of the talk of it amongst the Bruins fans and even just NHL fans in general. What do you do with the goaltending, right? Do you bring Swayman back and have him? If you got to go with one, who's your one, right? Kind of honestly, for me, like this is why I say Swayman, because the team's older, right? And they've just got a lot older. Do the Bruins go through a 1 to 1.5 to 2 year rebuild? If I'm them, honestly, right? You got Bergeron, but it's not guaranteed that he's coming back. It's really not. You don't know, right? And it didn't seem like he wanted to, right? Like he was crushed, right? Now, will that kind of fuel him to come back and give it one more kick? Maybe. But Swayman is still very, very, very good. And just imagine the return you could get for Allmark. That would be wild. Just came off a ridiculous year. Ridiculous, right? You can trade him for a all-star center. And even if Bergeron does come back, Zacha can play the wing. Put Bergeron on second line, or even put the whoever center it is on the second line. That's going to help your forward core because their defense is solid, very solid, right? It's their forward depth that's the question, right? Pastrnak is incredible, and Marchand incredible. Well, where's everyone else, right? Like, you need, I like guys like Lauko, that help. Geeky will help, right? JVR could help. Lucic, we'll see. but I mean, like, trade Allmark for a knockout of a player, right? Maybe a quick first round where you can get maybe an earlier pick, maybe top 20. We'll see. But like, that's kind of what I do, right? Because Swayman is, again, 23, 24, young, right? And he's arguably in that level, right? You give him the number one, and he's going to perform. So I don't know. I for me, it's like I would have to say either of them are a great option, of course. But freaking Allmark scored a bloody goal. But like just for the thought of what you could get for Allmark, you can still get a lot for Swayman. But what you can get for Allmark, I think, is the reason why I say take Swayman. Alex, what are you taking?
Yeah, I mean, between the two of them, I don't want to make this too much of a fantasy hockey thing, but I'd post it to the GM group chat. Both of them are available. I'm taking the best offer I get. You tell me which one you want more and what you're willing to offer. Yep. It's an open bulletin board to the rest of the league. Yeah, you guys can I'll probably see that I can't afford to keep both these guys. So top bidder might get one of them. And if you guys don't bid enough, then I might get creative and figure out how to keep both of them and say, screw all you. So I don't think that there's it doesn't feel like there's a lose situation for them there because you've got two good assets that other teams should want. I don't know which team's pulling out a first line center off their roster and going, we need to start in goalie instead.
I mean, maybe.
But you post it to the group, you figure out what people are willing to give, what can help you impact your team the most, and make a decision to go from there. I just really thought that, especially with their elongated offseason that they were so kindly given by the Florida Panthers, I thought that they might have had this figured out by now. And here we are with Swayman going to arbitration. So
I could see
that's my only big disappointment, I guess, with the Bruins is there wasn't going to be a lot they could do about Bergeron and Krejci. They were either going to come back and play or not, and they were already going to hit their bonuses during the season and cost you money next year because of it. So once you didn't win the cup this year, it was already set up to be an uncomfortable cap and roster construction situation for the next year. And I feel like I wish you could have felt like there was more work done to prepare, to read the market, to get ahead of it, to to get the best return you can and to keep moving forward. And now we're getting into, it feels like already the little bit of the dog days of the summer with the NHL because it was so much news on July 1. And then a couple more big signings on July 2, and now it's salary arbitration. And those cases will happen in like 3 weeks. So So on that note, we'll be a lot more exciting than salary arbitration because whatever. So don't worry about that. We're gonna have some stuff coming, no doubt. So on that note, thank you everybody for listening. It's a great one. We'll catch you on the next episode.